Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here. Very excited to welcome you to the Week 10 athlete briefing for our Team Whoopers Half Marathon Run Challenge. Can't believe it's Week 10 already. Feel like it was just Week 9. Speaking of Week 9, per usual, we're going to do our Week 9 review. So we started the week with our 45-minute endurance run with Striders. Just getting our miles in, keeping a nice, easy effort here, varying our pace, varying our stride length a little bit with those Striders. Just our nice, easy 45-minute workout to start the week. We're moving into our 45-minute half marathon pace intervals, so a significantly more intense workout, a great workout for this part of the challenge here. So we're working sub-threshold energy zones, kind of getting up to that top edge of zone 3. So there are a few things that we're really hoping for in this workout. We want to not only spend that time at zone, we want to start practicing coming in and out of the zone. We want to feel what that half marathon pace feels like. I know we talked a little bit in the last briefing that this might be a great opportunity to actually try out the pace that you are planning to use for the race itself. So maybe not that listed half marathon pace, but your kind of actual adjusted goal half marathon pace that you're working towards now. So hopefully you were able to do all those things there. Speaking of pacing here again, this is a good opportunity to look back in hindsight and kind of see how did that effort feel. If you went by our listed kind of calculator pace effort, did it feel like a pace you could actually sustain for 13.1 miles? Did it feel maybe a little bit too much? Did it feel a lot too much? So it's a great kind of benchmark workout at this phase of training to start really thinking about what your goal pace come race day will be. So I hope you enjoyed that 45-minute workout. And our final key run of the week, our long run, aka our final dress rehearsal. So I know many of you still have this upcoming here over the weekend. So I'm going to take a few minutes here, or maybe a few seconds, and just kind of remind you some of the most important aspects of this workout. Number one, easy, 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 easy effort. There are no gold stars for going out too fast here. Our training benefit is wrapped up, so this is a confidence run. So the things that we want to do, we want to be practicing our morning routine. We want to practice our breakfast that we're going to use on race day. We want to wear our race kit. We want to wear the things, especially the skin contact items that are going to be on our body for race day to make sure everything's feeling comfortable. If you plan to wear a tutu on race day, good for you, but you got to do it at practice of some sort. You might look a little bit crazy out there, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. Try it out in advance. You don't want to find out mile 7 or 8 with half the race to go. Want to practice our hydration, want to practice our nutrition over the course of this. Right now, this should be dialed in. So this is just one opportunity to go through that patterning one more time, make sure everything is completely decided before your actual race day. And then at the end of that workout, you want to start your recovery immediately. You want to start your stretching, your mobility. You want to start your kind of post-workout nutrition and getting right into your recovery ASAP so that we can hopefully be as best as possible coming into next week. But most important, for this workout to be successful, the effort has to be light. If you overdo it here and kind of burn it out for race day, that's not a great look. So as you are probably very aware by this part of the point of the challenge, I'm always happy to throw myself right under the bus. So thought I would share a story about my greatest 22-mile long run. It was in preparation for New York City Marathon a few years ago. I went out with friends that were a little bit fitter, a little bit faster than me at the time. Had the best, as I mentioned, 22-mile long run of my life. The only problem is that my legs were sore for the following 2 weeks. Past race day for the New York City Marathon, I had a very challenging day, and I left it all out there for my final long run. So don't do that. You want to be very controlled, very thoughtful. One more time, confidence run, and then dial it back down, go straight into recovery, get ready for next week where the important long run is. Final reminder of this 10-week challenge to go on and check the box. Just because we have a race at the end of the week, you still want to get credit. You want to be chasing that 100% goal. I'm sure there's somebody out there still chasing that 100% goal. So go in, check the box, get credit for your workout. Once again, if it's not 100%, that's okay. You want to be as close as possible, and then we want to use it as comparisons to future workouts and workout challenges where you are 100%, see if you notice a difference in your performance and your progress over the scope of that challenge. So check the box. Now to our race week workout. So we're starting the week 30-minute progression run. I love coming into a week with a race week with a progression run. Why? I get a real nice variance of pace. And for the half marathon in particular here, I get to come from my easy pace where maybe I'll start, move into my marathon pace and finish at my race pace that I'm planning on the race itself. Also, this is the progression run by its nature is a race where you finish stronger, hopefully feeling a little bit stronger, moving a little bit faster in the second half of your workout. Not a bad little mental kick going into your race to have that second half of your workout be a little bit stronger. Great way to start the race week. So keys for success in this 30-minute progression run. So this is not a long workout overall, but it doesn't mean that you can't throw your week off by doing it wrong. So one more time, we want to start this workout nice and easy. We don't need to be at the top end of that easy pace. We don't even need to necessarily be at the middle end. You want to feel nice and easy. You want to start ramping up through that easy pace range over the first 10 minutes of that workout. Then you need to hit your paces or even dial back the paces a little bit, because what you don't want to do is overshoot those paces. Certainly when the workout's a little bit shorter, you're feeling a little bit fresher, but what we don't want is for this to become a threshold workout at this point of the week. So it's a little bit better to be under than over right now. Where you want to be is just pushing up against, getting comfortable one more time at pace, at that kind of marathon and half marathon pace zone. Your race pace is probably going to fall somewhere right in there. So we just want to touch on it. We want to feel it real quick again before we get into the weekend, because it's been a little bit since that 45-minute interval workout of week 9. You want to cool down well. I kind of talked about going straight into your recovery on the long run. Sometimes we forget about it on the short runs, but you want to come through that 30-minute session. Your heart rate's going to be elevated. You want to make sure to cool down nice and slow. Use Matt's analogy. We're landing the airplane here. So you want to take it nice and easy here. You want to make, once again, go into your mobility, flexibility, whatever it is that you do after your workout. Use the extra time that usually you're running, doing something else, spend a little bit more time focusing on working on your body. Run number 2, 30-minute endurance run with strides. We're doing a full pullback here. This is just enough activity to keep you active, to keep things sharp and crisp. We're not trying to move the needle one bit. So dial it back down one more time. Keep it nice and easy. The effort we're going for is on the weekend. And run number 3, finally, our half marathon, 10 weeks in the making. Here we are. So it's super natural to feel nervous coming into the weekend. I think I mentioned last week or the week before, feeling nervous going into these things means that you picked a challenge that excited you, and it also means it's important to you. So being nervous is great going into the weekend. However, remember that this is supposed to be fun. The whole thing is supposed to be fun. So keep that in mind as you're going through your routine. This is all for fun, and it's going to be a great experience. Hopefully. No, it will be. It'll be a great experience. So a couple little tips and tricks going into the weekend. I actually think some of the most important things to remember about the race weekend itself, which is show up early. Don't put that stress on yourself to get there late. Baggage closes, bathroom lines are hard. Be there early. It might be cold. Bring the appropriate clothing to keep yourself warm before you get into the crowds and start the race. It's going to reduce your stress over the weekend, even if it means a little bit less sleep, to get there early. Go through your morning routine. We're talking about morning routine in the final workout here. This is one more opportunity. You don't want to short step your morning, wake up late, not go through the things and do the things that you do on every long run day. That's not a great way to go into it. It leads to some issues down the road. So make sure to go through your morning routine. This, once again, is just allowing the time and kind of the lack of pressure on yourself to be able to go through your typical morning routine. Do not shoot off the starting line. There are no races that have been won in the first mile, but you can sure sabotage your day there. Don't be a starting line hero. You want to come into this being a little bit easy, especially in big city races, and we'll touch on it in a minute. It's hard to get off the line. Take it nice and easy. This is what we talked, well, I talked and talked and talked and talked about all our half marathon pace intervals being opportunities to find that pace, to feel that pace. This is when the old proof is in the pudding. If you've been doing that and working hard at that, you want to come off and be nice and easy at the starting line, not overshoot your pace ranges right away. Do not dodge and weave as much in mile one. It might be crowded. You might be trying to get to your race pace quickly. What I don't want any of you to do is do a lot of moving to the left, moving to the right, kind of jumping on a curb, coming back around. You can run a mile, 0.05 by the time you hit the 1 mile marker and be exhausted. That we don't want. We want the race to kind of allow itself to come to you. So if someone's in your way, you can't get past a party of 3 in front of you, it's okay. You can use that section as a bit of an extended warm up. Take your time, be patient. The thing will start to open up coming into mile 1, mile 2. There's going to be plenty of room to move, plenty of time left to runs. Take it nice and easy. One more time, you kind of remove the stress from yourself at that race start. Allow it to kind of come to you. Use it as a warm up. Some things to do. I think these are very, very, very important. Do give high fives along the course. Give thumbs up for great race signs. If someone's going to go the effort to make it and cheer you on, show a little appreciation. Do say thank you to the volunteers when it's appropriate and when you're able. If you're getting late in the race and you're sucking hard for air, I think it's also appropriate to not say thank you, but maybe just give a wink as you run by. But if you can say thank you, they certainly do us all a great service. Try to smile personally. It actually takes less energy. It makes you feel a little bit better to keep a smile on your face. And when things start to get tough, think of all the fun moments. Think of all the great Friday nights we've had here together and have a good time with it. It's one more time, supposed to be fun. If you're doing the New York City half, look for this guy cheering for you coming through Midtown. We're going to come up with the exact location here soon, but I'll take some sweaty high fives and hugs, no problem. So you look for me coming through Midtown on NYC half. Most importantly, I think this is the most important part of running a race in general, a half marathon for sure, is mug hard at the finish line. Got to wait just at least a few seconds, 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds to stop your watch. What you want in the finish line photo is, like arms held high. Nobody likes this as their finish line photo. Look back and be devastated. So make sure you're mugging hard at the finish line, arms held high, not hand on the watch. Give it a few more seconds. It won't change anything, I promise. Pacing strategy for the half. So I have to be honest, I wasn't even going to talk about the pacing strategy. Someone asked in the question, so I'm moving it ahead here. We'll get to the rest of the questions in a minute, but I felt like I should touch on it. And the reason I wasn't going to touch too much on it is because it's dependent upon so many different variables. So it's going to be wildly dependent upon the experience of the runner and the experience at this race distance. It's going to be based upon the course and the course terrain and how that plays into the pace itself. And it's going to be based on to the weather. If you have a warm day versus a cool day, etc. So a lot of variables to take in. So I do want to give a little bit of guidance as best as I can, however. So if this is your first time running the half marathon and or this is the furthest distance you'd have ever run, I strongly recommend going out easy and kind of planning to stay easy over the course of that race. It is a lot more fun to finish the race with your hands held high than wondering what on earth you ever showed up for. I've done it both ways, and I promise you it's a lot more fun the first way. So I'd recommend starting easy. If you have some time goals on your first race, I would say start easy, get halfway, see how you're feeling. You could certainly run a fast, second 10K if you are feeling incredible. But I would focus on the experience. I would focus on having fun out there. I think it's going to bring you back and make it much more part of a sustainable part of your running journey. However, if you've done this a few times, you've run a few, let's say even 10Ks, you've run the half marathon, and you want to start getting a little bit more specific about pacing, there's certainly some things you can do. And so I will share my opinion of kind of an overall race strategy. And I kind of already mentioned the first thing, which is I like to start a little bit slow. It's, especially in big city races, very, very challenging to get much of a warm up other than just kind of gently jogging back and forth. And then even still, you're stuck in a corral system for quite some time. So in smaller races, a little bit easier. You might actually be able to get a genuine warm up in. Big city races, pretty tough. I live in New York City, tend to mostly do big city races. So I like to use the first mile and sometimes 2 miles as sort of a progressive warm up into the run itself. Also talked about the crowded corral system, trying to find your path. It's baked into my race plan to start a little bit slower, let the first mile or two kind of open up. I get to warm up a little bit over the course of that time, and then I've still got 11 and a tenth miles to go and have a nice hard run. So I would recommend doing something fairly similar. Is not trying to shoot off the line, ease into the first mile. There's a lot of running left to go. This is a little kind of more of a tip or trick than anything else, but when I get to the end of that mile, in 2 miles, I start looking around a lot to see who's around me. That things are starting to spread out, and it's very likely that some of the runners that are around me, I'm going to be seeing them for the next 10, 11 miles. I assume many of you have had that experience before. You know, you run a race with 40,000 people, you're around like 15 people for 98% of the race. You know, that's kind of the people pacing the same way. I am a big proponent of finding the person that is running, that has a great pace. They look like they're running the pace that you want to run, and I stick to them like white on rice. If it's windy, you can get behind them. You can let them do the pacing work. That you get to shut that off in your brain. You don't have to check your watch. You can just focus on running. You can focus on keeping nice, easy effort. And if for some reason they start to fade, you can go ahead, start to find that next person that you can pace off. But certainly feel free to unload some of the work on other runners. If you're a great, a good Samaritan, you can certainly take your turn leading the pace pack. Otherwise, if you're like me, you're just taking advantage of everyone else in front of you. So that's, once again, a little tip or trick, maybe worth trying. Overall in the half, the pacing should be, when running a really good half, should be actually super, super consistent. So with the 20-minute distance tests in the past and in week one, we talked about the strategies of positive split, negative split, even split. There's certainly some rationale between negative splitting the half. Once again, it's being super dependent upon the race course itself. Is the second half more conducive to a fast time? For example, like the New York Roadrunners Brooklyn half in New York City. Very hilly first half, pancake flat second half. Outstanding negative split race course. New York City half, which I know many people are coming in, it is kind of varied terrain throughout. Actually, your fastest miles, and I kind of talked about it when I did that brief breakdown of the course, are kind of going to be the middle miles. You're going to get hills at the front, you're going to get hills at the end. So your fastest miles are probably going to be right smack dab in the middle. Kind of interesting to see how that plays out in terms of those three strategies. So point being, it's highly course dependent here. But from first miles kind of to last miles, you don't want a huge variation to run a race like this, one of these endurance races. It's going to be mostly even splits you're going for, hoping that you come into 10, 11, and 12, being able to sustain that pace that you were sustaining at 4, 5, and 6. It means you pace it incredibly well. That being said, I will say coming into mile 10 on a half marathon, which I'm racing particularly hard, I definitely am starting to feel like I'm entering the hurt locker. At that point, I know I have 5K to go, so there are a few things I'm trying to focus on. I'm trying to focus on making sure I'm breathing. I use a 2-2 rhythm. Not everybody uses a 2-2 rhythm. You don't have to focus on any particular rhythm at all. What I want you to focus on is make sure you're breathing. You're trying to keep a nice, easy, sustainable effort. You're not huffing and puffing. You're able to still speak words, if not sentences. If not, just slightly adjust the effort back. Your legs are going to start to hurt, but your breathing might still be good. I'm also focusing on turnover. I want to make sure my cadence doesn't drop off. I want to make sure I'm getting my footfalls in. Similarly, I'm not looking at any data point. This is just from feel of training and trying to cue myself in to turn over, make sure I'm getting those footfalls. When it starts to slip, which it does at the end of a race, cadence can slip, posture starts to fall. Just think about lifting yourself up, tall, light, smile on the face, makes it better. And then finally, we talked a little bit about this last week, focusing on my positive imagery. I'm focusing on doing well. I'm focusing on getting to the finish line. I'm focusing on feeling strong, approaching the finish line. Those are the things I'm starting to approach in that final 5K to take me the rest of the way. So hopefully some of those things will help you as well. However, just know it's perfectly reasonable to ask yourself many times during the course of the race why you ever signed up for this in the first place. It's a great opportunity. Once again, to give yourself a little bit of a chuckle, know that we're there to have fun and that we can all do hard things. So week 10 challenge, race day, super creative name. It's time to put your hard work to the test. Share a photo or story about how you rocked your half marathon. We'll pick our favorite and send a little TW swag your way. So make sure to tag at Team Wilpers, at Team Wilpers Run Challenge, and use Team Wilpers Half to participate. So, few questions that have come up from the group this week. So, first question, should we adjust our running day if the half is on Sunday, shake out on Saturday? So, great question. I was actually a little conflicted when I was writing the week. We have this, it's kind of rigid in how we have to write it. So, yes, if you have that fifth run on the Sunday, I really wouldn't recommend putting the run on that Sunday, definitely not if your half marathon is on the Sunday. And I gotta be honest, maybe not even if your half marathon is on the Saturday. What I would probably prefer is to move that race either to kind of Thursday or Friday of that week. You could potentially use it as a shakeout run. Now, to be honest, you could also potentially skip it. The point of the week is to run a good hard half marathon. And if you do that and then don't get that 30-minute endurance run in, which was the run number 5, that still counts as 100%. You check that off, and I'll stand by that. Well, I say that you could place it on Thursday or Friday. Some people like to run the day before their race, and some people don't. They like that full day off. Both are great strategies. It's an absolute personal preference. I've done it both ways in my running career. Haven't noticed one way or another being more successful. So personal preference. Pick which day it fits in, makes the most sense with your schedule, and then even probably more importantly, know yourself as a runner and an athlete, and know how you've had success in the past and mimic that. You don't have to do exactly what I say at this point. Fall back on your training, know what made you successful, and do that. The next question is, if we're not doing the extension, but instead the spring challenge, should we wait to redo our distance test for that? It's a great question. Love when people bring up the need to retest. We're learning here. We're getting better together. I was thinking a lot about a retest for our non-racers this week, and I almost put it at the end of this training week, but I actually kind of kicked the can down the road. And so a couple options here. And the first option, and this is going to be a spoiler alert for the people who are doing the extension challenge, you're going to be testing in week 1 of the extension challenge. So it's been 10 weeks since we tested. We have 5 more weeks to the end of that. It's absolutely time to retest, kind of see where your zones are now. So you could join in and test with the extension challenge people next week. And because that was the reason I didn't add it on this week, is I wanted most people to end with another long run, not have a Saturday devoted just for the 20-minute test. So if you're doing the spring challenge, you have a few options. You could test this weekend instead of the long run, because I'll be a little bit less worried about you getting this long run in this weekend, just because it's not a half marathon in the next 4 or 5 weeks. You could test early next week as a key workout. As I mentioned, kind of join those extension challenge week 1 people who are going to come in and they're going to test week 1 of the extension challenge. Or you could wait until the start of the spring challenge. All would be great options. Either way, you're going to be testing the next 2 weeks, so I'm going to leave that one up to you. Our next question was, I want to keep running longer races. So what is a good weekly base mileage to aim for when not training for a specific event? So this is a great question. It's tricky to answer. All our questions are tricky to answer, which makes it a little bit fun for me. So overall, most people are probably going to want to pull back a little bit from their peak volume. Unless you're a marathoner and you've done many marathons in the past, and this might not be that much volume for you. But for most people, we're going to pull back a little bit. And it, per usual, is dependent upon a lot of stuff. So it is dependent on the experience of the athlete, it is dependent upon your training history, your injury history, and kind of how you train. So I thought I would use a pretty good real life example that will illustrate this well, and also maybe provide a little amusement, which is Matt Wilpers, who I think some of you have heard of, is a very good runner. Matt, I have to give him credit for, is probably a better runner than me at most distances. The longer the run, I get a little bit closer to Matt, but he's pretty much got me at every single race distance. So Matt was a D1 runner. He ran D1 through college. I did not run D1 through college. As a matter of fact, I did not run at all in college. I was doing very different college activities. So Matt Wilper is a better runner than me. However, Matt has a very limited tolerance for endurance. Let me rephrase that because that is wrong. Matt has a very limited tolerance for high mileage. His body starts to break down now as mileage gets higher. I'm like an old punching bag. I can just go and go and go and go and go. I have a great tolerance for high mileage. So that doesn't make me a better runner than Matt. I just said Matt was a better runner than me. And he's certainly more fit than me too. So why can I go longer? I don't know. It's just what I've built up to over the course of time. I don't have the injury history. Matt has issues when he gets there. So what does he do? He focuses on quality workout sessions, his kind of key runs during the week, and getting really strong quality sessions. He focuses on a long run on the weekend. He probably also has a little bit less frequency, where I run probably 5 or 6 days a week. Matt might run like 3 or 4, supplement with cycling, now rowing, swimming, whatever else he's doing at the time. Point being, it's not that I'm so much better than Matt because I can do more miles. The point is that it's completely different person to person on what that weekly mileage is. So frequency is a variable, as just touched on, and I'm going to kind of want to bring up. If for an athlete that runs 5 or 6 times a week, it's a lot easier to get higher mileage than if you run 3 or 4 times a week. You can only make those runs so long. So if you're hoping to, let's say, do 40 miles a week, but you only run 4 times, that's average of 10 miles a run. That's a lot. You break that up over 6, it gets a little bit easier. So athletes who are doing multiple sports, the mileage is tricky. However, I did want to provide some sort of actionable answer as opposed to just dodging the question. So from the way this question was posed, it sounds like this was a move into higher mileage. So I'm assuming with the answer to this question that you're like kind of hitting some of your peak mileage now. And so what I would say is that if I were to, I think, I probably would do a drop down unless I had another race looming immediately. And I'd probably be looking to shoot for about 80% of total distance. So, if you're doing 10-mile long runs, 12-mile long runs as your peak, you're all of a sudden 8 or 9. So why I want 80%, it's a pretty high percentage, is dropping all the way back down to 50. We see it all the time with our athletes. We get them fit, go up, run a fall marathon, take all winter off, come back in the spring. Guess where we have to start again? All the way back at the beginning. So if you want to take this fitness, piggyback it on for future events, future improvement, you want to keep it at a pretty high percentage. So I like about 80%, dial it back down. You could even dial the effort back down a little bit, focus on different energy zone targets, etc. But most importantly is you have to know as an athlete and your training history, what has worked for you? Where are the points in terms of mileage or intensity where you start to feel breakdown, where you start to feel fatigue that you can't get over? You want to back it down from that point. You want to stay safely under that point because that's no fun. That's no good. You're not getting the progress or the benefits you want anymore at that point. And when you find those levels, you can start to manipulate the intensity. We've talked about our three training variables. We've got intensity, we've got volume, we've got frequency. So when you find your volume and you get settled in there, you can start to manipulate the other 2 variables. So that's where I would start. I would start with maybe 80% of your peak. I would be really thoughtful about trying to identify the mileage targets where you felt good, the mileage areas where you started to maybe not feel as good, and then back down from there. Hope that helps. And now our final question was, I had 2 half marathons back to back. Ambitious. So should I use the first one as an easy run, or is it okay to do back-to-back races? And so I'm going to expand on this question a little bit and say, like, a lot of people will have kind of 2 races in short order, whether it's 2 half marathons in a month, even Chicago is 1 month before New York City in the fall for the full marathon. See it all the time with athletes, kind of have 2 A events in a relatively short order of time. So what you pick as your A and your B is going to be certainly up to you, but what I always recommend my athletes to do is be ready to go on event 1. So why do I have them to get ready to go on event 1? Well, they could show up there, the weather could be bad, they could feel terrible. One of a million things could happen to make that event not go as planned. So if that poor scenario happens, they can pivot back to race B or race 2. They've got this kind of fallback plan of using the second race then as their A race. They can kind of decide to run easy on number 1. However, if you run number one easy, potentially give up an opportunity for great race conditions. You get to race two, you don't know what you're going to get, and then there's not a pushback anymore to move back to to race three. You might be able to find another one, but at a certain point, you're just chasing races. So it would be my advice to show up to race one ready to go. If the conditions are good and you're feeling good, is give it a hard rip. You always have race two as a plan B as opposed to the other way around, because then you're even coming into race two a little bit tired at best. So my advice. But otherwise, friends, we are done here for the week 10 athlete briefing. I hope you all have an incredible race week. Can't wait to hear how everybody does. And I'll see you back here for the extension challenge next week.